the recording has started. So I just want to welcome Morten Knudsen, who has agreed to talk about enterprise access and tiered administration model for us. So Morten, welcome to our meetup, and thank you very much for taking your time in presenting this topic for us. So I'll just want to give you the word and carry on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. And you probably have seen me on LinkedIn doing a lot of things around log analytics. That's kind of my baby, but I also do feel a lot of interest around identity, and we cannot live without identities. This topic today will be around how we can do tiering of cloud, and at least some of my experience of it, and also going to show some cool things that I have built as well. But before that, I just want to kick it off by introducing myself. My name is Morten, based in Kolding in Denmark, and I'm a Microsoft MVP in security. And I do a lot of things in Azure and inside security as well. So that's kind of my focus. So what we're going to touch on today is a little bit about Microsoft RAMP, why we need to do things a little different inside cloud, the complexity around this. We're also going to touch a little bit about how we could design things so that we have a proper design that can scale. And then lastly, I'm going to show some demos for you of things that I have built, which is actually things that are built because I feel that it's lacking inside Azure right now. And so that is why I have build it, and there are a lot of excitement with my customers around this, and they're really happy about it. So I want to show it to you, and the whole presentation, I forgot to say that I put in a QR code here on the front page, so grab your phone and take a picture of the presentation. It's actually the whole presentation, including all the demos that I'm gonna show, the videos included. So, and the whole presentation actually is a huge presentation that includes a lot more things that I normally can cover. So grab it and deep dive into it if you feel interested in it. So the why here, why is it that we need to have I'm going back to the presentation here. So here's the QR code if you need that. Otherwise, I'm going to provide the email later on, and I can show it the link as well, and I can put that into the QR code into the chat later on. So the reason why we're here is that a lot of us are coming from an AD environment where we are maybe having 4 roles today, like an enterprise admin, a domain admin, local admin, or user. So we don't have very many roles, but if we look into the Azure and into the cloud world, we are having hundreds of roles. And that requires a framework for us to deal with all these different roles. And another thing is that we also have typically multiple clouds, and multiple clouds can be, of course, the traditional ones like Azure, AWS, Google, but it can also be any third-party system that we are using where we are also having identities inside that environment. So we need to scale, have a framework around this. And the other thing is that we also want to move from delegating permanent assignments into doing just enough and just in time. So we need to ensure that our admins or even users, if we want to use this for our end users, they are assigned the right permissions that they need to have access to. So it could be, of course, the traditional admins assignments where we get permissions for Exchange, for Intune, for any role inside our cloud environment, or it could be for end users where we want to delegate permissions so that only certain users within our environment can manage the account plan inside the Dynamics ERP system, as an example. So what Microsoft has done is to come up with kind of a plan. Think of it as a checklist, I would say, that they call RAMP, a Rapid Modernization Plan. I provided the link at the bottom here. And it includes, some things that we need to focus on, like separate and managed privileged accounts, monitoring our AD, our legacy AD, improve the credentials management, like self-service password things, clean up, and then lastly, manage from where can we deal with these privileged sessions. So think of it as secure workstations or secure virtual desktops where we can do certain things when it comes to tiering or tier 0 admin task that we need to do. I'm only going to touch on a little bit about this. So I'm not going to touch around all the other things that are on this slide here, but in the slide deck, you can actually see all these in more detail. So I'm only going to focus around the identity part of it. So again, we're going to touch about the PIM identity and how we can design this so that we scale it. But before we actually think about it, we need to understand the transition that we're going from. A lot of you have probably worked with either your own environment or your customer's environment, implementing tiering on the left side, where you have tiering in your AD environments, where you are locking down the environment and you're cleaning up all your roles and delegations around this. So what enterprise access model does, it's kind of the next generation of the old AD tiering model, where we have a framework that looks like on the right side at the bottom, where you can see you have like words like control plane, you have a management plane, you have a data workload plane, you have user access, you have app access. So there are ways we need to design this, and we have some new words that we need to understand, and I'm going to cover that today. So why is it that we need to have this? If we look inside our Entra ID, or on this slide here, it's called Active Directory tenant, we have today 102 tenant-wide roles. So at least there we have a difference compared to our old environment in AD. We have 102 roles today, roles like password administrators, user administrators, groups administrators, and these roles are tenant-wide. So if you have an international customer, a person that has these permissions have worldwide permissions to manage things in the whole tenant. If you look at the left side, you'll see a different cloud system, which also has an RBAC model, like Intune, Exchange, and so on. And then in the middle, we have the Azure Resource model, which has roles as well. Today, we have 427 roles, when I last checked, inside the Azure Resource model. And again, as I mentioned, we also have a number of third-party systems that also has an RBAC model. So this is a slide from a recent change that was introduced inside Defender, where you can now also manage your delegations in a more specific way, so that we don't all need to be security admins or security, like higher privilege. Now we actually have roles like I'm in charge of security operation, or he's in charge of security posture or authorization and setting. So we can do either use built-in roles, like I just mentioned, or we can customize things on the right side so that our operations can manage this in a more just enough permission model compared to the old model where we had need to have like a higher privilege. This is inside our Intune environment, where we also have now, I think, 11 different roles that we can delegate and use. So we don't need all of us to be Intune admins. We can actually do it more specific by using these built-in roles. These are roles that you know probably from the Exchange environment, where we also have some specific, some customized roles. So I think you get the picture here. This is very, very complex, and we need to have a framework and a way for us to handle this so that we delegate it in the right way and people can actually understand it. Like here, you can see some more examples: Power Platform, DevOps, Dynamics, where we have different levels inside the application where we need to delegate the right permissions. So this is a slide that might be a little, a lot of things going on here on this slide, but on the very top, you will have basically your Entra ID global roles. These are the tier 0 control plane permissions. So if you have permissions to tier 0, you are closer to God than if you are in tier 1. So if you are making changes in your tier 0 environment, these changes will be tenant-wide and global. As you can see there on the left side, you actually have conditional access, which is also considered a tier 0 permission. So the ones that can deal with permissions inside conditional access, of course, can make changes to the whole security environment. So we don't want anyone to be able to change this. Moving down to the blue area, now we are inside the Azure resource environment, and here we can actually see things like where you see words like landing zones. We have the tenant root, and we can see we have, for example, the platform management area where we have the management layer. So the management plane is a set of permissions that goes across the resource model, where we are dealing with security, logging, connectivity, making so the people that are in charge of the platform, they are having permissions for the whole management across all of our environment. And then inside our environment again, we have the different workloads, and a workload can be like a business application where we have a subscription with our servers or our PaaS resources, or it can be a data plane. So workload slash data plane is why I refer to them as a single entity. So it can also be like a storage account where we are doing some kind of integration. So it's not a real workload, but it's more of a repository of data. So again, we are referring to these different environments here in the tiering model, and we use the word control plane, management workload plane, and then on the right side, we have the user access and the app access, and that is our tier 2. So again, if you think of the old environment, we also did have tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, but in the new setup here, we actually have 5 ways or acronyms or ways to talk about this. And I think especially the one at the tier 2 app is very important that we acknowledge that there's a lot of permissions and integration going on, which is coming from apps that are talking with our environment. And it's important that we also handle the delegation around this as well. So, all right. So if we are moving down a little bit to see some ways that we can design this. And again, this is where your ideas are as good as mine. There isn't, I think, one set of rules here that we can think of it as the right one, but I'll show you how I do it, and then you can decide on your own how you want to do it. Again, the different components that we use to design this are the ones that I'm showing here, where we're using Entra ID groups and admins, of course. We cannot use on-prem groups, so we cannot use any groups that are synced from our on-prem environment. We cannot use dynamic groups, so we're using security groups or Office 365 groups that are cloud-only groups in our Entra environment. Then we use PIM, and then we use administrator units. If you're not familiar with administrator units, think of administrator units as an OU inside your AD environment. So the reason why we use administrator units is because if we were not using it, and for example, a help desk employee are getting the permissions like groups administrator, and if he gets the permission groups administrator, he can actually modify who is the member of a group, even a higher level, like tier 0 groups. So what we want to do is that, for example, we want to have the help desk employee who is a group's administrator, but just for users, for example, in Denmark, or for users that are inside Europe or the US. So we structure our users by making them a member of an administrated unit, and then we delegate the help desk employee so that they can manage the users within this container or virtual container. And that's how we use administrated unit. So we can delegate permissions to administrated unit, and we can structure users. And a user can be a member of multiple AUs. So that's where they maybe differentiate themselves from an OU in a traditional AD environment. Lastly, we use access reviews as well, and I'm covered that as well. So the way I target it is that I have 6 ways to target my assignments. So I assign things based on department, roles, service, task, resource, and process. So again, a department is a traditional way where you have an organization view of the IT department as an example, and then people are part of this group, and then you later on use it for assignment. I also see in more, I would say, bigger organizations, maybe also more mature organizations, that they use roles like SecOps, platform operations, and DevOps and stuff like that. In smaller organizations, I don't see that I use the roles very often. Then we also have service, and that could be that I define a service, could be SharePoint or DevOps or AD or ProMark or whatever. A task could be, for example, a person within my IT that only needs to have permissions for compliance reporting or cost management. And resource, again, is where we are being very specific. So it could be a consultant that needs to have a local admin permission on a specific server, and that's it. And lastly, the process, which is kind of a global permission, where you are in charge of, for example, patching, as an example. So again, But I'm going to show you now some examples of how I do it. And again, feel free to work on your own to do it. If we are doing departments, especially using the departments, I feel the need for having some levels of permissions. And again, if you have, let's say, just an organization of 5 people in the operation department, we all know that these 5 people, they are not all going to have the same permissions. So let's be honest about that. And that is where I introduced the word of levels. So, and a level 0 is what I refer to as a high privilege global role admin. And if you think of it as a cloud role, that would be the global admin. If you think of it as an AD role, it would be enterprise admin. Again, moving a little bit down, we have the global role admin. And that is where you have one of these 102 different roles, for example, cloud application administrator. Or if you go to an AD, it would be the domain admins or DNS admins, which are global role admins. And then a level 2 is what I refer to as a scoped role admin, which could be, and now we're down in the Exchange RBAC model, like Exchange Online Records Management, or an AD would be, I'm a sysadmin on a SQL server, or I'm a local administrator on a server. And then again, you have the operator level, the support level, the reader level, and the user level. So this is a way for you to refer to the groups and use this inside the naming structure so that it is easy to understand what level is it that I'm actually trying to activate inside my PIM environment. Okay, so again, one of the other things that I mentioned was the admin accounts. And for admin accounts, it is very important that we start using our AD admins inside our cloud environment. So once for all, start to separate things out and don't sync your accounts from the AD environment into your cloud environment for obvious reason. In case you get hacked, then you can lower the damage by having separate accounts. So in this case here, you can see on the blue field, that is me having 4 accounts, 2 for tier 0 permissions and 2 for tier 1 permissions. So if I need to do some work on the control plane level, that means that I have to be at tier 0. And then otherwise I can be down in the tier 1. Then I can use that. And tier 1 is my normal account that I use on a daily basis, where the tier 0 account is for high privilege accounts as well. Moving to the bottom is where you have the, that could be a consultant or that are helping a customer, like externals, where they are basically done by 5 different, having 4 traditional accounts. If the customer or you want to create an account within your environment, then you create an account with your naming convention. Or at the bottom, you can also invite an external into your environment by using a guest account. So both will be suitable. We need to have a naming convention, and this is the way that I do it. So if you look here by using these 6 different ways of structuring things, this is how I name my things. So if you have the first one here, example, that would be a privileged access group, department IT, the administrative IT, and it is the help desk department. It is a level 4. It is the support level, and it is the ID, the Entra ID, that is managing this group. So that is the way that I do it here. So I'm not going to go into details around this here, but you can probably see from the naming what I'm talking about here. And again, it's very important, I think, to have a good naming. I'm actually talking with the PIM product group right now about an idea that one of my customers brought up, was about if it was possible to use some kind of alias inside the GUI interface, so that especially if you want to use this for end users, maybe they don't understand the logic around this. This is probably IT language, but it could be really great to do this in a proper way, especially for end users. So all customers that are having an E5 license today can, of course, use this for end users as well. But this is another thing that could be of interest here. Yeah. So moving on. These are some examples, and again, all the examples are in the presentation, so you can use it later on. This is an example of departments within a customer, where you have some different groups. As you can see here, you can see there's a column which is called group tag, and the group tag is what I use inside my automation that you're going to see later on, where you can see how I do the whole automation around this. So the group tag is my key in my automation, so that I can change the group name and the group description without my automation breaking. Here's another example of using roles, where you have different roles within your environment. Again, you have the group tag. And you can see you also have the administrative unit tag. And the last columns are more for documentation purpose. Right now, some of them are not used inside the automation. This one is a little hard to read, but this is a way for you to define a service. So again, a service, think of it as a way where you are delegating permission, for example, to Intune. So as you can see here, you can see that you have inside Intune, you have some permissions here, where you have some rights, and underneath Exchange, you also have some rights. So this is kind of getting permissions for a dedicated service. Here is another example where you are being more specific. So now we're not talking about a service, now we're talking about a specific entity of resource, which could be a SQL database, a SQL server, or it could be like a Power BI workspace, or inside Dynamics, it could be a certain role there to a specific permission. Again, here's the process, which is like patching. So these are some of the definitions. Think of this as kind of where you define the different groups that you are delegating permissions for. And so besides definitions, you also have the actual assignments, and I'm going to touch on that in a few slides. So again, this is examples of tasks. So as you can see here, I'm actually mentioning some tasks that are referred to as traditional AD tasks, and I'm going to show you how I do that in a few minutes as well. So task is, again, what it is. I need permission to access like a security dashboard. It could be a manager that just needs that particular access. Here are some of the AUs as well. And lastly, here we have some of the admin accounts that are showed. So now we are over and kind of taking the different admins or the groups and assigning permissions to them. So in this case here, you can see that I have some group tags where I'm referring to a group tag called Department 2, which are delegated some permissions. And you can see here the type of permission that they are getting. And again, the length of the assignment that they are receiving. So here we are again referring to them as group tags. These are another example where we are delegating permissions to a group on a specific AU, and it is getting some permissions here. And think of these as the one where you can decide what you want to do. You want to do it eligible or active. It's up to you how complex you want to do it. Here's another example of how you can do it with the Azure resources, where you will typically do it on a management group level or on a subscription level. But you can, of course, go all the way down to a specific resource within a resource group and so on. So you decide on your own how you want to do it. So again, these are the admin that are being kind of linked to these groups, these services, these tasks. And again, we are referring to everything as tags so that we can make changes around this. Again, it is very important for me to stress that this is where we are all different. Some would say that once I activate an eligible assignment, for example, for a department, then I will have all my resources active right away. Or you could also say that if I activate an eligible assignment for a department or role, then I get some more eligible assignments that are visible to me, but I have to specific go in and activate them. So again, this is where you can decide on your own how you want to do it. All right. So now I want to show you how we can actually do some of these things in some automation. And as you probably have known, or if you have worked inside the PIM environment today, let's be honest, it's a lot of clicking around, and it is very hard to find the proper permissions that people are having and who is having what permissions and why do I not see the eligible permissions in the GUI? I only see the active permissions and so on. There are a lot of confusions going on. Let's be honest around that. And that is why I have built some things that I want to show to you here. What I'm going to show to you here is not public available, but I can, if you want, you are more than happy to get a copy of it from me today if you want. But I will publish everything that you're going to see today public later on. I'm right now working with the product teams, with two teams around some challenges that we are having, and one of them is that the performance around this is where I'm lacking some things. So if you want to have a picture of who has what permissions inside your Azure resources today, you have to traverse all your resources in the whole resource model. And we are working on getting that inside the Azure Resource Graph environment. That will come, but it's not available right now. Right now, so we only have the role that are just released yesterday, public. I'm also working with them on some issues with the PIM team. For example, if you delete a group inside your Azure environment today, it will still show up inside your PIM view, and that makes it somewhat confusing that you have two groups maybe that are named the same, but if you click one of them, you will actually get an error. So that should, of course, be fixed as well. So these are some of the things that I'm working on. I'm meeting with both the product teams next month in Seattle. Here's an example of one of the challenges I'm facing right now. If I use a specific API, you can see it actually says in the documentation that I need to be run in a MFA challenged in setup, and that's somewhat hard to achieve if you automate things. But again, this is something that we need to find a way for us to figure out a good way to do this without breaking anything around the security model. But that's today, when I run this, I had to run in an interactive MFA session initially. This is another example of the one I mentioned with the Azure Resource Graph. It is really cool that now we can ask Azure Resource Graph about who has what permissions in my model, and we can get the result very, very fast. If you're interested in learning more about this, I have built a model, and I put up the QR code there on the slide, which is a PowerShell module, which includes more than 100 predefined queries that you can run against Azure Resource Graph. And I'm actually also showing some demos on the GitHub side and some videos of how you can actually retrieve all these information like RBAC information and everything out, and you can integrate with like display names from your Enter ID and so on. So I just did a presentation this Saturday in London, and there were a lot of excitement around this because it's actually kind of a hidden feature with Azure Resource Graph, and for once it's free, so go please use it. It's really a cool feature. But again, we are lacking some things, but I'm working with the team, and as you can see here, Shaheth wrote me last night that they all want to meet next month when we come there. So I'll promise you, I'll fight to get these things in the product. Again, this is the automation side. Here I'm showing it in a simple way with CSV files. On the next page, I'm going to show you how I built it for a SQL environment. So it really doesn't matter how you want to do it, or you want to do it with Terraform, or if you want to use tables inside a storage account, it really doesn't matter. You just need to have a way for you to target this. And it is very important that we have some automation. One of the things that I feel is lacking right now is that if we set up a PIM assignment today, there's no way that we can actually handle the policies around this. So we need to set the policies afterwards, like a policy that enforces like the need for MFA or the need for for example, justification. So we need to have policies set afterwards, and that's very important. Therefore, you automate things. So if you have people setting up PIM assignments, we need to set the permissions and the policies afterwards. So that is why I have this solution that should run on a daily basis and manage all the managed settings that we handle. Here's an example of, for example, where you can integrate it with a ServiceNow that can do some changes into this and handle, like, think of it as a ticket where you assign something or you revoke something. So it's kind of a managed approach. So, and everything here is will be provided. This is just a screenshot of it here. But we also need, at least that's my knowledge, we need to have a way to handle the assignments in an ad hoc basis. So the first ones was the managed assignment, but what I found a need for was create a wizard. This is an example of a 6-step wizard that will actually take you through the delegation that you want to set it up. So this is an example of how you run you can run the assignment. So again, this could be an admin that wants to delegate permission for a consultant that needs to have some permissions right away. And he doesn't want to go through the whole managed approach with ticketing and everything. So here you have a wizard where you go in and say, okay, I want to give for Exchange admin permission. Is it for an admin account? Is it for a group? And then you select who should get the permissions, and you decide the length of the assignments by some drop down here, and you can choose the permissions, and you click the OK, and boom, it's set up. So again, this is a way for you to use your structure, your naming conventions, your the whole setup, but going through this in an automated way. Once you have done that, a lot of times you also have some people that are worried about the actual assignments. So this is where the reporting comes into place. I'm also built a an assignment exporter that in a simple way can export all the permissions out in a spreadsheet form where you get both a list form or you can get a pivot table form, and you can do whatever you want. I also have a revoker facility here where you actually can go in and revoke a permission that you have assigned. So here, what is it that you want to revoke? Is it a role? Is it an Azure resource? Is it a PIM for groups? And it enumerates all the assignment that has been given, and you can filter, you can do multi-select in this form. So you can go in and say, I want to remove 10 or 100 assignments in one go. And you just click what you want to remove, and then it revokes all the permissions. So again, this is just an easier way maybe to do some fast cleanup in an environment. And again, this is for you to use if you feel that you like it, then you can introduce it for your own environment or for your customers as well. So this isn't just an example of that it shows all the PIM assignments that has been done on the Azure resource level. So, and it will enumerate from the whole environment. It doesn't have any interaction here with the automation environment. So lastly, I want to show you what I built for PIM for Legacy AD. And I need to set the scene here with this slide, because it's very important for me to stress that there's no syncing going on. So I have two admin accounts. I have an AD account, I have an ID account, and there's no, syncing membership back and forth here. And all the accounts that are in my my intra environment that are ending on S_AD, sync to AD, are being read from the environment, and then all the groups are created with identical name inside my AD environment. And then I have a script that runs with looking at the different PIM session, and then it identifies the AD account that was added to the PIM session. Then it will identify the equivalent AD account for this particular user, and then it will modify the membership, like add and remove. So that's how simple it is, and I'm going to show it to you here. So again, this is an example of this script that runs. Here you have the process where you go into an Entra ID and you activate the group. In this case here, I activate the local server admin's permissions and I fill in the justification. Of course, I have the MFA, I have the length, and then it adds the user to this group with the length of 300 minutes. And I'm going to show why this is important here. Because here, what I'm leveraging is a feature inside 2016 Forest functional feature, where you can actually go and enable a feature inside your environment in case you are capable of running 2016 Forest mode. And as you can see here on the blue screen, you can now add a parameter called member time to live, where you can make a user a member of 40 minutes or 600 minutes or 3 minutes and so on. And then once this limit is reached, it will automatically remove the user from the group. So it is a simple feature. So if my script would break down for some reason, or something happens, then the domain controllers will actually do the job of removing this as well. I'm always checking the number of seconds that are running inside the PIM session, and it's never the same for some reason. But in this case, you can see that there is a deviation of seconds for 29 seconds. And if it's within the reach of ±2 minutes, it's automatically accepted. But if it's not in this reach, it is being synced up again and reset. So it is fully the same. And now I'm actually, and once you reach the limit of your PIM session, like 50 minutes or 1 hour, then it will remove it, or if the user goes in and deactivates the permission. So now I'm going to show it to you. So this is within my AD environment. You have the user, and you can see here the admin, sorry. The admin here is only having domain users permissions. And I'm also going to show some of these groups, delegation groups that are coming initially from my Entra environment where they were created, but here they are also created locally in my AD environment, but there's no syncing going on. It's local. I have a GMSA account, which are handling all the permissions here. And here is the machines and the users that are capable of retrieving the passwords from this. And then lastly, I have the script at the bottom, and here I'm using it, I'm showing it to you here as an example. It typically I use an engine to run this from, but I'm just going to show it here on the screen to you. So now I'm showing you here that I'm trying to connect to a machine, and it will disconnect my session because I'm just a user. I don't have any permissions to connect to this particular server because I'm not a local admin. So you'll see here I try and it will disconnect me. So now I go over to the right side to my Entra ID environment, and then you can see here I'm logged in with my ID account, whereas in the other one I was showing you my AD account. And in this here, I will go in and find a group that will give me permissions to become a local server, a local admin on all the servers. For example, if I need to change the DNS on all the servers, I can go in here, do my justification. I'm being validated by MFA, and then I go in and I activate my session. So I go in here now and I click the activate. And if you look on the left side, you will see that the script will eventually pick up this assignment here, and it will make me a member of this particular group. Here you can see that it made it picked up this, and it was for 120 minutes. So now I'm part of this group. And if I go into this delegated group here, you will see that I'm now a member of it. And now I can go in and I can jump to this server here. So I'm now gonna do connect to the server, and I will have access to it. But I'm just a local server on a local admin on this particular server because I did not activate any domain admin permissions. So now here I'm gonna run a simple script that shows that I'm actually logged in to this machine with using my AD account and not my ID account, which was used to activate this session. And you will see that I'm a local admin on this particular server here. So, and the next thing that I'm gonna do in this demo here is that I'm gonna start up my AD domains and users, and you will see that I'm lacking the new button, because here you can see there's no new button because I'm just a local admin on the server, so I'm not a domain admin. So if we were having time, it will actually keep on and showing. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the domain admin, but let's move on here because of the time. Lastly, I want to touch just one slide here around the access review, because again, another way for you to handle who has what permissions and who should continue to have the permissions in this, we actually can use Entra access reviews as well. And access reviews will investigate who has done what assignments, who has activated what permissions, and it will come out with a recommendation saying this consultant has been delegated this permission, and for the last 12 months he has not activated once. So we recommend that you remove it. So then you can click the recommended action, which could be removed, and it will clean up this for you. So this is a way for you to use access reviews. Of course, it's important that you have some owners on these groups so that you can handle the reviewers around the groups as well. So to wrap up, just some important things to keep in mind here. When you do the role delegations, there's a maximum right now. You can only have 500 role assignable groups per tenant. When you are doing the nesting or you're doing the design, it is not possible to do nesting if you are doing role assignable groups. So it is not supported as of now. Again, when you do the design, pick your choice. For example, as I said, are you gonna I can assign a legible group, and then once I have activated my department group, for example, then all my assignments are active right away. So it's just one step. Or do I want to introduce more steps to it? Also remember the length of the groups, that there are some limitations around this as well. And I think it's very important to have some automation around this, especially around the policies, so that you enforce the requirement to use MFA, the requirement to enforce maybe approval process if you need to have that. And of course, to do some proper communication to both the admins and the users, that's very important as well. So they understand why are we doing this here. And again, as I said, it's important to have some owners on these PIM groups so that you can use it for access reviews. Keep in mind that this feature will require a separate license. So Microsoft recently introduced a now governance license that is needed to use PIM for groups access reviews. I don't know why, but that's a way for them to I guess, earn more money. So that will require a separate license if you want to use that feature. All delegations, I would recommend to go through PIM. Don't use any or try to clean up any permanent assignments that you have in your environment. And maybe consider to use my revoker to get an overview of the ones that are in your environment if you don't have that view, or of course you can extract it from scripts. Remember your emergency accounts. It is part of the ramp model. It is mentioned in the docs as well. And lastly, separate your admin accounts. Don't use any syncing. So separate them out. So that's it. So this is 2 QR codes. The first one on top is for my blog, and the last one is for my LinkedIn profile. I'll be more than happy to connect with you all. Just reach out or write me anything. So that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Morten. It was a pleasure to have you presenting this for us. It's quite interesting topic you have there. I really like the product that you're working on.
Good.
But I would like to thank you very much for presenting this for our Meetup group. And I'm going to stop the recording right now. So thank you all for joining in today. And hope to see you next time when we have both a physical meetup or a virtual lunch meetup that I think we definitely will do again.
And thank you for